always wanted to ask you is, I used to live down in southern New Hampshire, and down there's some really, really strong, passionate libertarians who, they don't believe in driver's licenses, they don't believe in speed limits, they don't.
Free staters.
Free staters. They don't think, like when the judge told these free staters to take off their hat in court, they wouldn't take off their hat in court. And then I looked in the parking lot, it's all Ron Paul bumper stickers. I was just wondering what you kind of thought of the crowd that doesn't believe in like speed limits and.
But I cannot control, nor do I try to control what goes through the people's heads who send me money, But I speak for myself, and mine is not anything approaching anarchy. I think we just talked about a little bit earlier on how the market works and how the market regulates. So, and the other thing is under our system, up in New Hampshire, you're more liberal, in the sense of gun laws and other things than a lot of other states. But that's what I'm trying to protect, whether we're dealing with the abortion issue or prayer in schools or guns or speed limits. I don't want the president to do it. I don't want the Congress to do it. I don't want the federal courts to do it. I want you to have your say, and some people believe in less speed limits, and others, think it really helps. And those who think you shouldn't have speed limits would probably go to the German Autobahn, and they seem to drive very fast and not have necessarily more accidents. But I don't deal with those issues because it distracts from the issues that I've been talking about, because I consider, war and personal civil liberties of the Patriot Act and the monetary issue so huge that I'm going to let somebody else worry about the speed limit. It used to be my city council that worried about speed limits, but just so the UN doesn't come in and set the speed limits, then I would be very much involved.
When you talk about state rights, I know that you've, I saw on YouTube at least, that you were in favor of supporting gay marriage. Would you leave that to the states to decide, or does that become a civil rights issue that needs a federal mandate in order to allow that?
I think the second part of your statement, or the middle part of your statement, is where I was. It isn't that I come out and say, I support gay marriage. My new book, I talk a lot about this, and I think the best thing we could do is get all government out of marriage and just get away from all this stuff. If somebody wants to say they're married, I don't really care. So I would legalize their option to call themselves whatever they want. And
but from a state or federal level?
Well, I definitely don't want the federal government involved. There was an amendment to the Constitution dealing with this, and I voted no, because we don't need another amendment to the Constitution dealing with marriage. And the definition of marriage, for me, I just look up the definition in a dictionary, and I know what it is, and I practice what I preach, and I've been married and for a few years, more than half a century. So I think my definition is what I practice, but for me to tell somebody else what they want to call themselves, that's their own business. And the big problem comes from people wanting special benefits. Oh yeah, I get spousal benefits and things like that. So,
but when states start making laws that restrict individuals' rights and liberties, who is going to protect those, if not the federal
the state? Government? The state is supposed to protect your liberties. I mean, that's what the state is for. I mean, the state is protecting you about buying alcohol. If I want to set up a shop out here today, and I would think I should have the freedom to sell you a bottle or whatever they do, but your law says, no, you better not. So the state settles that. It might be, some people might disagree with it, some people agree with it, but I'm not going to argue with it. So I would say on these issues, the marriage issues and others, I don't know why conservatives should be frightened about it and why liberals shouldn't push for affirmative action. I think your last part of it was pushing things, affirmative action and acceptances and forcing employment and things like that. If an individual says they don't want to hire, what if you're in a small medical practice and there's a gay activist who wants to work for you, and you say, well, no, I don't like what you stand for. I don't want you in my office. should have a right to do that. But the law shouldn't have it should be more neutral. It should say no prohibitions and no compulsions. It can't, compel you to do it, and it shouldn't prohibit you from doing it. But if you're going to have it under our system, because these things are difficult, then it should be more at the local level. But I think we create problems for ourselves. I think this whole thing on marriage has been created and not a good thing. But even let's say it was for benefits. Let's say it has to do with Social Security, and we ran Social Security like an insurance company, and you have beneficiaries. Well, all right, it says your beneficiary goes to your spouse. You could very merely say, well, you get to name the beneficiary. That would solve the problem instead of making these assumptions. So I think we create so many problems for ourselves. This whole thing about, either we punish people or we give them special privileges, and a person who understands the Constitution really and understands what liberty is all about, it's government shouldn't be there to compel, and it shouldn't be there to be punish. It should be there to protect every individual because they're an individual, and never because they belong to a group. So I don't like this idea of gay rights and women's rights and all this stuff, because I want individual rights. If you protect everybody individually, it doesn't matter who you are or what religion. That's the reason I can be as independent-minded when it comes to how you treat people of other religions. And sometimes they want to gang up on all Muslims now and say Muslims are bad people and we have to restrict them and not them allowed to do anything. So individuals, to me, is the most important thing.
A little while ago, you talked about your prognosis for the economy is there's going to be high inflation, and it's going to be from the Fed. Can you kind of just expand on that and tell us, what the average person, what are they going to feel? When are they going to feel it? Say, how is the price of bread going to go up?
The price of bread is already going up, and people talk a lot about the cost increases in food prices and the shrinkage of the bottles, and the containers hold less. I opened up a container the other day that I'd bought for a long, long time, and it was only half full. Same size container. So people are noticing that, and they're going to notice it a lot more because they can't shrink the containers anymore. They're going to have to up the prices. So they're desperately trying to keep their sales up and their profits up without raising the prices. But prices are going up, and although oil prices are down a little bit now, the oil prices are going to continue to go up, and prices will go up.
Well, how does that relate to the Fed? Like, how does it work?
It's a devaluation of the currency. Prices really don't go up. It's the value of the dollar that goes down. Since 2008, they've essentially tripled the money supply. The money supply isn't being circulated like it might and like it will, but it's out there. It's sitting in the reserves, and that can break loose, and it's starting to do that, and that translates into higher prices. So prices don't go up.